Made back in again.
We're back.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
What's the name of this?
This is the Allan Dale radio call-in podcast, and we're inviting Islanders to connect with us. If you've got anything to say, an issue on your mind, a concern, something you want to discuss, the number to connect with us is 902-500-2464. You can also comment on Facebook Live, but we prefer the phone calls.
You know, we ended it yesterday. We talked about the importance of storytelling, the importance of sort of filling in the conversation, sort of, you know, telling your own story, filling your own narrative. And oftentimes when that doesn't happen, the void is created, and then the information starts to fill that void, which is often incorrect. It's often incorrect. And we see that playing out globally right now. I mean, you just have to turn on any news channel, and there's so much confusion around this ceasefire, and the what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz, and right down to our own legislature, right here in Prince Edward Island. When there is a void of information, people will fill it, and it's not the story you want told. That's concerning. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to manage it.
Yeah.
Once that toothpaste is out of the tube, if you're not on top of that narrative, you lose it real quick.
Yeah.
You look at the Strait of Hormuz and the impact and the maybe misalignment in expectations. So Trump's declared that they've got a ceasefire. The markets rallied yesterday, actually soared. And, you know, oil dropped today, oil's back up.
Mm-hmm.
The markets are under pressure.
Right.
Because there's a misinterpretation of what the expectation was.
Yeah.
And there isn't a ceasefire, and there's allegedly still some firing going on in all kinds of different directions.
Well, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, right? I mean, these things are complicated and tricky, and we could spend many, many days trying to figure out why missiles are still firing, why these things are still happening. And some cases, it's more often than not a very simple answer to those things. It's not as complex as we think it is. But at the end of the day, the challenge really is people are lost. They're lost in the conversation, and they don't really know how to think. And that's what sort of fuels this whole misinformation. And and I don't think that's healthy to leave that there.
Well, if you got somebody like J.D. Vance who's negotiating your terms of engagement for the next 2 weeks, that's a problem.
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, you've got some interesting players in the middle of this conversation, in a very complicated sort of global impacts, and some very interesting players in the middle of sort of negotiating this thing. I mean, you couldn't write this thing for a Hollywood script, but here it is playing out in front of our eyes.
And it's a conflict that was a powder keg. It's now started.
Yeah.
And like many of these, Afghanistan's probably another one. The resolution's not clear. We'll see what happens. But the impact, you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, and the oil prices are back up today. The impact to Islanders is real.
Right.
And the price of fuel is certainly an impact because of that. What were you mentioned? There's some miscommunication even at the local level, where the narrative kind of gets away in the legislature.
Right. I mean, like, you know, just take the sort of the latest sort of discussion point in the legislature with, you know, a sitting minister of government sort of making some missteps, or I don't even know the complexities of what happened or all the details.
It's very complex if you're referring to what I think
you're
referring to.
Of course, right. And so now people are trying to get answers, but there's silence, and so what ends up happening is people just assume the worst or want to feed the conversation with the worst case scenario, and that's probably not where the answer is.
Right. And it was a minister, in fact, that is now sitting as a outside of caucus, I guess, or as high cabinet. So very complicated, and as you'd expect, opposition are making heyday with this because it's a controversial, questionable issue, and you're right, we don't have resolution to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have a duty to get the answers. I mean, they're sort of.
But if you address it quickly, it might circumvent some of the chaos.
It's not even about sort of putting your own sort of, I hate the term spin, but it's just getting some clarity. And I believe that is the essence of what we're talking about, is that people deserve that. They deserve the clarity.
We do have a call
So
here.
we got a call coming in right away. That's fantastic. Right out of the gate.
Bear with me. I'm going to strike a
So
chord.
as we take up this call, so that to me is really what it's all about. It's people understanding that if you don't provide that clarity, people are going to fill that conversation with the void. Who do we have on there?
Well, it's a personality that many people will be familiar with. It's Jamie Foxx, former leader of the Conservative Party, former member of the sitting legislature up until very recently. Jamie, you must have heard us talking something that we said that caught your attention?
Yeah, petroleum pricing in general is a topic of interest to me.
Okay, well, we started off with the impact of the Strait of Hormuz and how that oil pricing is affected. I know that you've got perspective on this, Jamie, from your time in government. Why don't you give us a little bit of an education on how petroleum pricing works here in PEI, how the regulator sets the pricing, and how that futures contract is affecting people at the pumps today. Any perspective would be helpful as we try to understand what's affecting Islanders' wallets.
Yeah, sure, Blake. Actually, to go back in time, our family's been involved in the petroleum industry in New Brunswick for many years, and then, of course, I branched back into the retail market when I retired from policing, and we bought, opened, operated the Tim Hortons SO station in Borden, and then we also built another station on the wholesale side in retail in the province of Brunswick, and we're engaged in the market also in the province of Nova Scotia. So I have a perspective of how the industry works in three provinces, and especially how it applies to the province of Prince Edward Island. But it's a very complex issue because petroleum, everybody talks about the crude oil price, and that's fine. Crude price is one part of it, but it's the refined price, which is where we feel it at the pumps. So it's a whole complex issue of a product that's traded on the world market. It's required every day, and it impacts everything we do as an end user.
Maybe more so PEI because everything's shipped in by truck, essentially.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put the blame right where the blame lies. You have the Island Tourist Appeals Commission, which does not understand the petroleum market or industry whatsoever. They use a formula that's out of date and not up to the standard of what actually is happening on the world stage. But then I also got to say that EEI, when you factor in what we actually consume as a province when it comes to petroleum products, is basically as much as a suburb in downtown Toronto or in Montreal. So Iraq, of course, I've been saying this for years. They need to change the model. The formula that they use is not to today's, the way the actual industry works. In Brunswick, Nova Scotia, they use the New York Harbor price, which is a refined product price. That's more accurate. But yet you've got Iraq, who uses a formula based on a 4-day spread on a Charlottetown rack price, which doesn't even equate into what actually fuel is doing on the world stage, or in the international stage, or even in the regional stage.
Jamie, it's Al. How you doing? It's great to hear your voice. Jamie, could you speak to it quite eloquently? Obviously, you've been in the business a very long time, and of course, being in government, you know the inner workings of Iraq. But can you sort of break it down, sort of give us a 101 lecture on it, so that the audience can fully understand just how out of touch our model is?
Simplify it for me if you can. Yeah.
Well, it's based on Charlottetown rack. So basically, all fuel comes in Prince Edward Island, comes in by tanker Irving. It goes to the rack in Charlottetown, and it's stored there. And then as the gas station orders fuel, depending on the brand or the sign it's going to, SO Irving, Shell, whatever, then they mix an additive to it. So in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, basically So thus we're paying extra prices because of the model doesn't work with what real world is doing.
So where does the solution lie, Jamie?
Well, I recommended years ago that we need a one formula land province model. The New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI, they should be getting together and they should be coming up with a petroleum formula that actually takes care of the region. And that hasn't happened. So, if we have a formula that we have, they talk about international trade, they talk about regional trade and trade between provinces and trying to reduce some barriers. Well, here's a barrier that affects everyday lives of everybody in the land Canada.
Yeah.
So come up with a formula that takes into play what New York Harbor prices are doing and put it into effect across New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI.
Where's the opposition to that? Why would they not move forward on that? It seems like a very logical solution.
Well, they don't. It comes down to bureaucrats don't understand the industry.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. You need to have people making decisions that actually work in the industry and actually, move petroleum. Like I used to buy roughly 35 million liters of fuel a year. That's what I purchased.
Wow.
Quarters of a cent make a difference.
Sure.
When you have a tanker coming in between 50 and 60,000 liters a day, and that's what we were hauling. We were hauling in one tanker a day times 2.5. A quarter of a cent makes a difference. And every time that fuel moves, it's taxed.
Right.
And you're trying to buy and sell fuel on a margin that's very thin based on world events in a market that needs the product. It's very complicated. But you have a non-regulatory appeals commission who does not understand the market. They do not understand how petroleum flows and how it actually moves through the downstream part of the industry and how world prices affect what is actually going on.
So, Jamie, if it was a regional bench set price, that makes a lot of sense. Why is there such a discrepancy between the price you pay in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia and, if you had an outlet in Borden, is it fuel to transport it? Is the price more expensive in Borden than Surrey? Why is PEI so much higher than other provinces?
Well, the formula is the main key to that. But then, of course, you have the tax structure in between the provinces is somewhat different. The only really variable outside of them two things that adjust the price is the transportation costs. Like hauling fuel into Borden used to cost me roughly 0.053 cents per liter. Right, so you take that and you times it by how many liters in the truck, and that's what you get billed. In New Brunswick, up in my station up there, I was paying roughly 1.125 cents per liter transportation cost. Now, I actually had I was on a conference call this morning on petroleum, and the price now to get fuel roughly from the St. John market to the Woodstock market is over 2.5 cents a liter. Right, so the transportation cost has risen.
Yeah.
It costs you more to go to the grocery store to get groceries. Well, it costs a trucking company or a wholesaler more to transport the fuel from wherever to wherever. No difference if you're transporting wood or you're transporting paint or petroleum. But the discrepancy comes from the model that's being used in the province of Prince Edward Island.
So let's talk about that model. One concern I have, oil is $2 a liter, which is extremely punitive to islanders, especially if you don't have public transit, which many people don't. So that $2 a liter impact, and we talked to somebody who called in a few days ago who identified the impact to their farming operation was maybe almost double what the fuel cost was a short time ago. And all those input costs have to be absorbed. But here's a question that concerns me, is this layered tax burden that people pay. And you see it, I'll give you all kinds of examples, but at the pump, there's so many layers of taxation, federal and provincial. Like, is that something that needs to be evaluated because of the cost of fuel? And can it be evaluated? Is that something that IRAC have control over?
Well, you're taxing tax on tax. So roughly
filling your car with tax. There's no fuel, it's almost all tax.
You're taxing, well, roughly, I think it's around 27 to 35 cents per liter right now is tax.
Okay.
The last analysis I had, right? But I want to go back to one thing you said a minute ago. You talked about what determines the price of the pump. Supply, demand, consumption, refinery cost, the price of crude as it's traded, the taxes come into play. The actual electricity applies into that because we need electricity rate goes up. It's more cost on the refinery. It's more cost on the gas station, so that price is factored in. There's distribution and marketing. There's competition, and there's exchange rates. I know that. I can go over to Danforth, Maine, and I can watch an RST transport truck drop fuel into the Danforth U.S. Maine station. I can buy it. I can figure my U.S. gallon to Canadian liter, my U.S. price to Canadian dollar, and on my half ton, I save $60 Canadian
Wow.
tank.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And listen, I certainly appreciate your perspective on this, and clearly an incredible amount of knowledge there. If Iraq is sort of getting that wrong, is there anything else they're getting wrong? I guess I'd have asked that.
Well, that might be a can of worms. You sure you want to ask that
Well,
question?
I do want to ask that question
How would I know
because
the answer to that question?
this impacts islanders every day,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on it, Jamie?
I believe we do need an IRAC, but I do believe IRAC needs to be retooled and remodeled and brought up to the 20th century. IRAC is working on a model that's never been changed, it's never been adapted, and I think the last person that ever put something forward into IRAC was Gail Shea back in 2005, and that had to do with the environment. But I don't believe IRAC, this is my opinion, I don't believe IRAC is doing anything to protect islanders. I think that they're protecting the system that they're running. I believe they're protecting the way they do things, but they're not actually looking at the best case for islanders. And a prime example of that is the Public Convener Act. I brought forth a proposal to bring in a public convener to actually fight for islanders when it comes to maritime electric rate increases or any increases before IRAC.
That makes sense.
And that was shut down by the Liberal government, and it was never brought forward after. And I've always contended that we need a public intervener. I don't believe the commissioner should be appointed. I believe the commissioner should follow the exact same appointment as a provincial court judge because it is a quasi-judicial organization, and thus it should not be a political appointee. It should be put in place by the bar society, the same provincial court judge does, and then actually be an independent body, that actually works for islanders. But if it was a public intervener and we looked at IRAC as far as when was the last time IRAC's never even ever, that I can ever remember in 12 years in government, thereabouts in opposition in government, that they ever put forth a proposal to change something to make it better for islanders. And like that needs to change. So it is a big can of worms. It's hard to actually people. I can remember when Al Roach and I and Buck Watts and I was on the audit committee and I was in the opposition and I recommended we do an audit on IRAC. And Buck Watts was in charge as speaker. He was in charge of the audit committee, and Al Roach and I went in and I went through it with him. And Jane McAdam was asked to go in and review it. And Jane come back and said she had no idea how much of a beast that IRAC is and what it actually, encompasses across the island. Well, is the East actually invest more today's times?
Well, just to be a devil's advocate, now you were in government, you were a minister under Dennis King, I think. Did you ever put anything forward to try to reform Iraq, or is it just so unwieldy that no politician wants to touch it?
I've talked about it for years. And there was several ministers that agreed with me that we need to actually look at what the model is. And I believe there is a place for IRAC.
Well, Jamie, I got to tell you, that's the clearest explanation of Iraq that I've ever heard, and I'm sure that the listeners are going to really quite appreciate that. Jamie, can I take you up a little bit of a level and come out of sort of the provincial conversation here, and let's talk federal politics for a moment. Yet another person crossed the floor today. What are your thoughts on what's happening federally?
Got to be a lot of pressure, though. I mean, this gets Mark Carney one step closer. If he can secure these upcoming by-elections, he's got a majority. So there's got to be pressure on candidates from all parties to, in inducements or whatever is required, to get them to consider crossing the floor. It is a messy business, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I got to go back to Jamie's point, though. I mean, people step up to that, and Jamie knows no better than anyone. I mean, you step up to that to serve the people in your constituency. That is your job. I mean, to sort of do that is, I tend to agree with Jamie on this, that's a pretty unusual move. They put you there with certain expectations, and then you yourself decide.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little hard to swallow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's unsettling and becoming more common.
I think they should go back to a by-election. Right. Personal opinion. I think that it should be a mandatory requirement if you want to cross the floor. Okay, fine, but then you have to face the electorate again and go through an election. I think that's the only way you can look at it, or fairness about it.
Let's keep rising you a little bit higher here, Jamie. We've covered provincially, federally. I know that you've done your time in the military. You served there as well. I'm sure you're quite in tune with the things that are happening globally. What are your thoughts on this ceasefire? What's your feeling about that?
Well, yeah, I'm a veteran. I served in the artillery and military police, and I continue to promote the armed forces, of course, and veterans group, and I believe we should do that as a country. It concerns me when the international rule of law is not abided by, and for there is times I think when a country needs to say enough is enough and move forward to try to make a change. But I believe wholeheartedly that all diplomatic conversations need to be exhausted first. And that's something I had great experience with Dennis trusted me with a lot of diplomatic conversations with different countries. And I think at the end of it, I talked to over 14 different countries worldwide and did various trips on behalf of government EEI. And I think that relationships, we've forgotten our friends, and we've forgotten that relationships are very important, and that we need to keep that line of communication open. Dennis used to criticize me because he said to me, remember, COVID's on, but I'm a face-to-face person. I like to actually come over, shake your hand, and have a conversation with you. And that's where you really become friends with people and gain that trust. And I believe that the world has lost a lot of that. And I still have conversations with ambassadors. I met with the Taiwan ambassador not too long ago, the ambassador to Israel. Him and I talk quite often. U.S. people, friends of mine in the state government and stuff like that, and that's when we talk. Like I still have a conversation with people on a just the other day I was talking to the ambassador from Turkey. He gave me a call on what I was thinking about fishing this summer. And I think the world needs to get back to actually having direct conversations to make the world a better place and to improve our relationships with people.
We've covered a lot of ground here, Allan.
100% covered a lot of ground, Jamie. I really appreciate your perspective on all of those levels. Clearly, you've got ideas, you've got thoughts, and and people should sort of sit up and listen to exactly what you're talking about. This is a troubling time globally, and of course that hits right at home. I guess my final question to you would be, one a little bit more light in the conversation. But if you could reflect back, Jamie, what was perhaps your favorite moment in politics? What are you most proud of your time? Because I know you've served for a long time.
And you may not be done in politics.
And it may not be done yet, but
Your past.
Well, I might be a little bit emotional here, but I really enjoyed bringing forth legislation to provide workers' comp or EPSD coverage to all workers in Prince Edward Island. There was a lot of opposition against that. I'm glad we got that passed. Ron Ambrose and I worked very closely in being the first province in Canada to bring sexual awareness assault training to our provincial court judges, which that led, and Ron was able to continue that and take that into Parliament, and it was brought forth for the government of Canada. So I'm very proud of them two pieces of legislation. I brought in the third piece of legislation. These are all is in opposition as the leader, and I brought in another bill to protect officers or police officers in the province. And so those are probably the three, the main things I'm very proud of. I'm very proud in the relationships I had with First Nations, with Darlene Bernard and Junior Bull, and also the meeting with foreign governments and having them fair conversations with them and trying to promote Prince Edward Island. And I think Prince Edward Island is a very unique place where we can bring perspectives forward that can actually benefit a lot of different places around the world, and people should be taking note of that.
Well, that was great, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time. We have kind of extended our call, but you had so much rich information to share with us. Some context on the oil pricing and how people are affected at the pumps, how it's regulated, and maybe what could be done differently is really important to this conversation. And yeah, I appreciate you calling in, Jamie, and look forward to whatever your future political ambitions and career sort of drive you to make more service to Islanders.
You never know what might happen next. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, in politics, that's certainly true. Thanks so much for the call.
thanks,
Appreciate
Jamie. Thanks for your service, mate.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We did extend that a little bit longer,
Sure.
but that was good content. That's how easy it is to call in.
Yeah.
And I'd encourage anybody who's got a perspective, certainly the impact of Islanders on pricing, oil's a big part of that. If you have any comments, thoughts, perspectives, give us a call. We'll give you a voice and let you have your say.
100%. I really liked how Jamie ended that, and that is that Prince Edward Island is a unique place. We talked a little bit about this over the last few days. It gives it gives us an opportunity to look at things differently, maybe try things here that can then be sort of brought across the entire country or indeed the globe. And I think we need to lean into that more. I think we need to understand that our size is indeed our strength and our ability to sort of get things done, whereas most places can't do it with great ease. I really enjoy Jamie's sort of perspective on Iraq. Iraq it's a mystery to a lot of people.
It's a punching bag lately.
And a punching bag, and maybe rightly or wrongly, I'm not sure, but certainly that's a very interesting perspective. I'm quite amazed that certainly Jamie feels that it hasn't evolved to keep up with the times, and I think that's got to be a very important part of any sort of government agency, is to evolve and keep up with the times.
It's pretty important, especially when you've got your constituent as the public and you're bestowed the importance of managing costs for Islanders, whether it's rentals or accommodations or oil. Understanding how that institution works and why it works, really crucial. That was good.
And it was very good. And also sort of back to that regional conversation as well, right? I mean, stronger together here than we are sort of broken apart. And that's been a lot of the conversation. How do we drop these regional, provincial barriers? And that's a classic one right there that seems to be right in our grasp to fix.
And it certainly would be important to Islanders. I think that's a political win. If we could get pricing parity and even uniform purchasing, whatever the dynamics are that make it better for Islanders, hopefully there's people listening that can implement that.
Yeah. Political win, I would just say it's an island win, really, right? And I think that's what we need to look at. We need to figure out how do we make this better for Islanders. Jamie had some great perspectives there. It was fantastic to hear.
Well, even not just the regional cooperation, but international.
Yeah.
That's broken down, and you see that between the Canada-U.S. relations. This is the time for those to be repaired. Anyway, it was great. Really appreciate Jamie calling in. And a reminder, if you want to call in, we'll give you your voice. We don't have solutions, but we have an opportunity to listen and let you have your say. Number again is 902-500-2464. I'm trying to watch on my phone. You see me looking at it, trying to see if there's any comments coming in on Facebook. We'll try to respond to those. I see a few there posting, but by all means, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's important that you call in, because it's really, this show is all about your voice, not just ours. It's about adding something to the conversation and perhaps shedding some light on things that not a lot of people fully understand. You'll recall last week we spoke to a dairy farmer who really laid it out, sort of the struggles that they were going through. And I got to tell you, that opened my eyes to an industry and his certain challenges I wasn't aware of. And this is what I'm hoping to gain out of the show, is that every time somebody calls in, we learn a little something, like we just learned on our last caller there.
What else should we talk about, Allan? I mean, I think the impact of Islanders and the cost and the compression, everybody's feeling that today.
Mm-hmm.
There's been lots of things going on in the legislature, lots of things internationally. What do you think people want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we touched on it briefly there, but this floor crossing thing that's happening right now, we talked about, we both feel, I think we both agree that Prime Minister Carney seems to be the right guy at the moment to do what's being asked of him. But this floor crossing thing, I don't know how this sits with people.
Well, Jamie had a good comment. Maybe you should go back to the polls, do a by-election. But there's been so much movement within the political spectrum. I don't know if there's 4 or 5 people have actually crossed the floor. Maybe it's time for election.
Right.
So I agree. I think Carney has gotten us to a point. He's opened up international conversations. Maybe we should be closer to an election than farther away. It's 2 or 3 years until the next scheduled election.
It must be tremendously complex after you cross the floor to sort of...
or are you welcomed in? Are you on a pedestal because you've kind of helped support a government to achieve closer...
Yeah, I'm not even so much thinking how you're received.
Well, back in your home district.
I'm talking about when you go back to your home district and you're walking into the coffee shops, into the restaurants, the very people that put you there. What must that conversation be like? I'm not sure.
Well, maybe people who are listening have a perspective.
Yeah.
What if your MLA or your MP decided to join another party? How would that sit with you?
Such a good question. Such a good question. How would it sit with you?
I kind of agree with Jamie. If I have put my vote toward a certain policy and I have an expectation whether the person is in government or in opposition that they're going to stay true to what I have cast my ballot to support, I'd be disappointed to see them maybe do not a 180 but change perspective. And what's the rationale? Is it personal motivation? Are they doing what's best for the constituent? I'm not sure. That's a question they have to ask next time they go to the polls.
Do you think most people are voting for that person, or do you think they're voting for the ideals, the policies of a party?
That's a great question. It's hard to make that distinction. I think there's no question in Canada you're electing a party that then is government. In the U.S., you're electing separately the president. So I think in our constitutional monarchy, I think the vote for the individual is probably what's most important. They're the person, grassroots, in the community, connected to the constituents. Again, another question for our listeners.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So that one sort of jumped off the page for me in the last day or so, and how people would respond to that. I mean, I think that, it's happened throughout our lifetime,
it's happened
right?
in provincial politics as well.
For sure it has, yeah. So that was a great call, and certainly it brought things down to a very local level. And Jamie had some perspective around sort of keeping the lines of communication open. And it's another thing that we talked about as well, the importance of sort of filling the void in the conversation, sort of getting the story out there. That was fantastic. Again, right? I can't help but think to myself, Jamie Foxx clearly articulated Iraq. Why has that not really been done in such a fashion so that all Islanders
Understand.
could explain to their friends and families across Canada, we have this agency and here's what it does.
Well, instead it becomes this phantom entity that nobody really understands. They don't understand who's involved, how to connect with it, what the responsibilities are, how they come up with their pricing.
Yeah.
It does affect all islanders. I think it's important that that message gets out. So again, thanks, Jamie. And we want to say that this podcast or live call-in program is designed to get votes from you, or our listeners, comments on what you have to say. But there's also an opportunity. Jamie got to speak for a bit of time. We'd welcome anybody who wants to come in and sit in this chair and be a co-host with us. We'd love your perspective. We can ask you direct questions, and the audience can ask you direct questions. So today on our podcast, The Exchange, we've got dropping at noontime, which I guess is now, should be released, leader of the Liberal Party, leader of the opposition, Robert Mitchell. So his podcast is out. Be great to have maybe Robert Mitchell come in and sit and take calls, or Rob Lance, or anybody, Gordon McFarlane, and we would welcome anybody who's got a perspective to come join us.
Yeah, no, everybody's welcome in the conversation. I think the conversation is key. So a couple of questions coming in there, a couple of points being made. Why are we using oil from the Middle East to the Irving refinery is the first one, and the second one is beast indeed. I guess they're referring to Iraq as a beast.
Maybe it's us.
Maybe they're referring to you and I don't know. I go back to I think I've said a couple of days ago, I'm truly, it was talking about healthcare, I'm convinced that the good folks at Iraq, there's little doubt in my mind they get up every morning and go to work saying, well, I'm going to slow things down, I'm going to make it more complicated. They go to work trying to make it good for islanders. They're trying to do the best thing. That's not to say that the structure around them is not the best, right? So it could be perhaps tweaked, maybe, I think tweaked, Jamie probably wouldn't agree with the word tweaked, but it could certainly be looked at and sort of how do we evolve it to the modern day standards. So, but I do feel, and I can't stress it enough, I really believe that those folks go to work every day trying to make it better, right? And it's just sometimes it's the system around them that needs to be changed and allow them to do their job.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope it's not to go get a pension, but it's a complicated situation, and they are dealing with international commodity, trying to set the price. The thing that always is interesting to me is the price changes so rapidly with the change in international pricing, and we don't feel that international price because it's a future contract. It could be a couple months out, but immediately the price at the pump changes regardless of the supply that's in the tanks.
Right.
And Jamie said he's getting a tank every day, so it does rotate pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty immediate change. As soon as that oil price changes internationally, we feel it.
Now, of course, it's not all doom and gloom. Our neighbor to the east over there, as the oil prices go up, their bottom line keeps going up as well.
Wouldn't that be wonderful to have a resource that's supporting your fiscal management?
I believe their provincial budget's based on $60 a barrel.
Okay. So you're doing great.
And I think that every dollar it increases, it's somewhere, the exact amount escapes me, but it's somewhere between 15 to 20 million on their annual budget. So you can just imagine that how life is over there right now.
It's got to be good, and it's going to be good for the foreseeable future if they're getting these prices.
Yeah.
Alberta would be the same, so they're probably basing their budgets on $60 a barrel oil. The question on why doesn't oil come east? Well, of course, I think the refinery in St. John would love to get Alberta oil and refine it here. The issue is you can't get it here.
Yeah.
There's no pipeline. So instead it goes to the States. It actually goes right down as far as Texas to get processed.
Right.
And the value add stays in the U.S. as opposed to being processed in one of the coasts and ideally the East Coast.
Tricky conversation, right? And one that's been going on for many years now to try to figure out how do we move this resource around our own country. But I think we're aiming on it. We're aiming towards it.
We'll see. Hope so. I mean, there's lots of obstacles. There's provincial barriers. But back to your comment, we've got to remove these provincial barriers. We've got to transport the economy east-west because the south-north corridor is not as reliable.
All this talk about, tapping into our resources and stuff, you have to think that the environmental movement has somewhat been put on a back burner here. Is it gone altogether, or is it people realizing we really need to step up in this thing?
Maybe, I don't think it's gone. I think it's still very much part of our culture. But when it comes down to economics or environment, it would seem that both governments and individuals tend to choose economics. Maybe the economics of high oil prices will drive people towards Chinese EVs if that's what we're manufacturing
Right.
locally.
I'd love to hear from our local Green Party on that issue, right? I mean, those folks made some incredible headway over the years here in PEI. In fact, we're looked at nationally as sort of being the gold standard of a Green Party. It'd be interesting to get their perspective on what's happening right now and the type of conversation that's playing out globally. It's almost like they've been put on, I don't want to say their conversation's been put on the back burner, but the entire conversation around.
Certainly nationally it has been.
Yeah.
I mean, they've really constricted as a functioning national party. Maybe PEI has better candidates, but they certainly continue to resonate locally.
Yeah.
So,
I'd love to hear from them.
well, if you're listening, the legislature doesn't go in for another 20 minutes. So
Make that one
call.
last call.
I'll give you the number in case you want to call it. It's 902-500-2464. It's a good question, Alan. What's more important? Environment, economics, and how do people feel, especially where we live on this little sandbar, so vulnerable to what goes on in our environment around us. At what point does the environment take a second seat to fiscal management, household budgets, affordability?
Well, it's not a binary thing. It's not one or the other. It's everything, right? It's I'm a firm believer that as it relates to energy, we need all sources. We need all of it, right? So we need to figure out a way to manage all of it effectively. So that, to me, that's where the answer lies. It's in the gray area. It's not one or the other. But it would certainly be interesting to get their perspective because you rarely hear these days sort of the environmental conversation.
Hasn't gone away.
It has not
gone away in the States.
Yeah.
You don't hear that down there.
Well, it's certainly, we don't see it on the news, that's for sure. Whether it's happening, I'm unsure. But that's the other thing, right? I mean, what we see on the news is not necessarily always what happens. I recall last year being in a conversation in the eastern part of Prince Edward Island. We were at a dinner table with some neighbors, and there was a couple there from Kentucky, there was a couple from Texas, a couple from upstate New York.
She's got an interesting neighborhood.
Yeah, and a couple of islanders and a guy from Austria. And we were all sort of discussing it, and it doesn't take long for politics to come up, and sometimes it can be a little bit testy. And it was clear in my mind, that these people were nervous about talking about it. But the Austrian gentleman, he was sort of fueling the conversation because he was very interested in our perspectives. And I appreciated him pushing our buttons on it, right? But what we all came to realize is, and I certainly walked away, thinking to myself, I don't know which way those folks would have voted.
Right.
Because everybody in that conversation was in the middle.
So if they were Republican, they probably would have told you.
I think there were people there that voted Republican. I think there were people there that voted Democratic. I think but my point is that most people are in the center of a conversation.
Right.
And it's only the sort of extremities
to get the attention.
That get the attention. And so we think things are ramped up and fueled up. Well, maybe that's just a vocal few. Right? And I'm not saying that nothing bad is happening. I'm just saying that
it's always the vocal minority.
Yeah, but most of the conversation happens in the middle, right? I really enjoyed that conversation. The Austrian gentleman, it was fantastic that he kept pushing our buttons to get it out onto the table, because otherwise, honestly, we're too polite to sort of dive into it, right? Yeah. And it was a very interesting conversation. Yeah.
Well, we do have a little bit more cosmopolitan community here. There's people, diversity from all over the world. And I think that's one of our benefits. We don't have that polarization, and we can have conversation. And I think that's missing globally, certainly in many countries today.
Well, I tell you, if you can't have the conversation, you wind up in a bad place. And I believe that's the important. As small as this little show is, the value of the conversation is very important. The value of the conversation, though, really hinges on people calling in and giving us their perspective. Otherwise, it's just you and I.
Who wants to hear that?
Well, we have our own perspectives on things, right? And, and I'm one of those folks, and I know you are as well, that you're open to be persuaded in another way,
I want people to have their say.
Yeah.
And that's a whole opportunity with this platform. Get issues on the table.
Yeah.
hopefully people are listening that can take action. And, Jamie Foxx calling in to give his perspective on important issues is great.
Yeah.
That should fuel other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So a reminder again, the phone number if you want to call in. We're into our last quartile of this call. It's 902-500-2464. It's a live island call-in program, and we want to hear from you.
Yep, 100%. So, yeah, speaking of people that our voices aren't being heard, there's a lot of people out there that feel quite sort of marginalized at the moment, and you see rise to certain sort of podcasts and stuff that really cater to that group of people. What are your thoughts around sort of young males at the moment? Do you feel like they're in a conversation?
Who knows? If they're listening to Jake Paul, they're in a conversation. It might not be one that you want to be involved with, but I think there's so much influence from social media.
Right.
And everybody's susceptible to it. Maybe the young female brain evolves earlier, but I think people have to be careful of where they're consuming their information, how impressionable they are, and what kind of society we're going to create in the future because of that. There's all kinds of programs on streaming networks that look at some of these issues. I don't think it's not limited to any gender or age group. I think we're all bombarded constantly by messages that are probably fabricated to steer us in a certain way.
Talking about that, I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole framing of content. So it doesn't take much for you to have a conversation in your house or search something on your phone, and then all of a sudden you're being bombarded with that topic. So do you like that, or are you threatened by it?
It's an algorithm. So,
but do you like it, or are you threatened by it?
You should be threatened by it, because if you inadvertently click on something you didn't mean to, you're going to be fed information that you might not want.
But you were interested in it at the beginning.
Or you clicked on it inadvertently.
Okay.
There's so much stream of content. If you spend more than a second on it, maybe you turn your head, and that,
But how often does that happen versus people...
Just death scrolling?
Well, or people that wanted to find something.
Sure, these are sophisticated systems, right?
So, I 100%. Yeah. I like it because, so for example, if I'm looking to purchase something, or if I'm interested in a topic, and I start down that path, then I find that I'm being fed that. And so ultimately that's what I wanted all along.
But you could use that same power using a large language model to drill into issues, find the information without being fed.
And you don't think the large language model, which is another term for AI basically, right?
Yeah.
You don't think that is doing the same thing?
I think it's a little bit pure at this point. I don't think it's feeding you information the same method that social media is. I mean, the social media algorithms are designed to keep your attention. Right. It's like Pavlovian. You want somebody to have to keep coming back. One interesting societal case study, go to any event, whether it's a doctor's waiting room, if you're fortunate enough to have a doctor, or a sports activity, or a maybe bench, people are waiting to go into a meeting. People are so habitually conditioned now to grab their phone and scroll on it, they've lost any sense of connection.
Right.
So I think we have, unfortunately, and we've been programmed to be fed information, to chase that information, to open up that screen as quick as you can.
Right.
And the more you look at it, the more targeted that marketing becomes.
Is that a sign of our age, that if you go out to dinner with somebody and you're having a conversation like we are now, and they pick up their phone?
It's expected. So
how do you feel about that?
It's offensive.
Okay.
So you can't sit down at a dinner table with anybody. And so I'm as guilty as everyone. Right. And maybe I'm more conscious of it, which is great. I'm concerned about young people. Right. So you look at the junior high school or younger, people are getting phones very early. And it's not a security device, it's a requirement to be socially accepted. Kids are on phones from an early age. They're on it the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. There's profiles being built on these people to feed them information. And if you wanted to feed, and clearly these companies that do this are organized, if you wanted to steer society, they've got the tools to do it.
Right.
And that was some of the concern with certain platforms like TikTok, which might be influenced by foreign governments. So not to be a conspiracist, but I think if you look at how people behave, how compulsed they are to look at these devices, it should be a concern.
Right.
That's a lot.
Do you know anybody without a phone?
I can't think of anybody. I know actually refused to get a smartphone. They reverted to flip phones.
Right.
You can't hardly find one unless it's a burner phone. So no, can't think of anybody that's not over-connected.
No, I know of one person, but just got it.
Okay.
Just got it within the last couple of weeks, but resisted for a very long time.
You can't resist because it's the only thing you can buy.
Well, it's very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because now it comes down to sort of almost safety issues. You almost sort of need to be
location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we survived without that before.
It's not so. Is it 5 years ago? It's not more than 10. I mean, now this device, this handheld device, controls your life.
Right.
Your wallet's on it. Your booking information if you're traveling. Your calendaring.
Yeah.
It's become so ubiquitous to survival. You can't live without it. So that might be a question. Let's throw it out to people.
It's a great question.
If you are feeling the pressures of social media or overstimulation from being connected all the time, we'd like to hear from you. The number is 902-500-2464. Is the advent of technology in our back pocket a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an early adopter. I know you are. I know you are. I'm an early adopter of things I enjoy, technology I enjoy, but you can certainly see it impacting people's lives right in front of our eyes. I too am offended when somebody picks up the phone when we're having dinner, but I probably do it too, and I'm not even aware of it, right? Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was growing up, my dad worked for CN Telecommunications, so the original national telecommunication company, and we were the first family in Newfoundland to have a car phone. My dad was an on-the-road, he would sell telecommunication products around the province of Newfoundland.
Was that a Marconi phone?
Close. It was the old style rotary phone. No, it wasn't even a bag phone. It was the old style rotary phone that you used to have in your house, sort of that triangular looking thing, right, with the rotary thing. And then we had a big modem coupler that you would click into it, and he could have a conversation. Wow. Yeah, and I remember that we had a Valiant, and we had this rust-colored Valiant with some rust on it, and we had that. They had that phone in the car. Can you imagine?
You would have been the envy of the community.
I tell you, we were the envy of our cul-de-sac.
Right.
All 6 houses, for sure.
Yeah. That's some history there.
Oh, yeah. And the history, there's cul-de-sacs in Newfoundland.
There you go. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Because you'd probably go over a cliff if you could turn around and come back out.
Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of but I remember sort of that technology sort of back then, and fascinating to where we've come, right?
Sure. Even the old Iridium phones, which are the first kind of portable, international kind of using satellites. Today we've got multiple companies putting so many satellites up in space you can hardly see the sky anymore.
Yeah.
Creating connectivity. They're going to be doing data centers. Ideally, I guess SpaceX want to have data centers in space as a cheaper way to manage the environmental impacts of the compute power they need. Yeah. We've come a long way.
We have come a long way, and I have another funny story about mobile phones as well, if you want to hear it.
I'm very open to hear your story.
So the first time, or I guess it was 92 or 93, the Jays won the World Series.
Yes.
When you
almost won it last year.
Yeah, almost last year as well. But I guess it was 92 or 93. What years
were
it?
93, but I'm not sure.
Was it 93, 94? Or
maybe it's 92, 93.
Anyway, whatever it was. It was the first year in that run there. And at the time, I was at sea on board a Canadian destroyer. It was a HMCS, His Majesty's Canadian Ship, Montreal. And we were off the coast of Boston. And it was the Game 7. And I was on the bridge, it was a quiet night. And I decided that I was going to call in the CTV desk in Halifax to wish the Jays good luck from the ship. Back then, we were using satellite telephones, and it was like $14 a minute to use a satellite telephone.
On hold for a few minutes?
So hold on. So I called into the Nova Scotia CTV desk, and they, wow, you're at sea, that's great. Just hold on, we'll get you on the national desk. So within a minute or so, I'm now talking to the national broadcaster, in Toronto. And they said, oh, just hold on, we're going to get you on with Rod Black. Okay? So, right? And so, hold on is a big ask.
Did you have enough quarters to keep putting in?
Hold on is a big ask at $14 a minute. Yeah. And I was on hold for a while, and then bang, Rod Black comes on, and next thing you know, I'm on sort of national TV, but just my name. But here I'm calling on this satellite phone, wishing the Jays good luck. So yeah, we have come a long way in our technology for sure. Yeah, and it's come down in price, except the phones have gone up in price. When was the last time you bought one?
The compute power is so significant. The phones are expensive. Even a cheap, if there is such a thing as a cheap, inexpensive phone, they're not inexpensive.
$2,000 for a phone.
Well, if you get the top of the line.
But you know what
Apple,
I mean? Most people want this latest iPhone, and they'll line up to pay that money.
Sure, yeah. But this goes back to affordability and what's reasonable.
Right.
What should people be spending money on? And, if you can't fill your tank with gas at $2 a liter, the cost of technology is almost, it's a requirement, especially if you're younger.
Yeah.
Boy, it's an impact.
It's not a nicety. That is a necessity.
Well, I think the phones themselves are the upper models.
Yeah, of course you don't need it. Yeah. But it's fascinating. And again, I'm an early adopter on this kind of stuff. So I love sort of the new tech when it comes out, and I'm willing to
get a foldable phone if they can figure it out.
If they can figure, well, they have.
Samsung have one, but Apple are working on it. They're having problems, so Apple's stock dropped because they're allegedly not able to get it to market.
I used to love the flip phones; those were fantastic. There was something about them that you could crank them open. If you got the extended battery on the back, it got a little bit larger, but it was still fun.
What are they called? StarTacs.
Yeah.
Motorola StarTac, kind of based on the Star Trek StarTac,
right.
I think. But
yeah. Well, it's got to come back. I'm sure that'll come back.
No question. Well, and Apple, if they can get their stuff together, that one released.
We've covered a lot of ground here today. Some of it a little bit of fun, some of it quite serious, honestly, right?
It was great, and really great to hear somebody like Jamie Foxx, who's been in government, he understands business, and he's got a lot of perspective, and really, that's what we want. If there's anybody listening, call in. Let's throw the number out one more time. I know we're running out of time, and we pay by the minute, but I've got an extra loony. We'll see if we can extend it. Number again is 902-500-2464, and
so that's the trick. You got to call in. Let's get this conversation going. We'll just continue this moving forward and see where it goes.
And we need more people who want to come in and join us and sit in this chair, because it doesn't have to be about me or Allan. In fact, Allan travels a lot, so we'd love to have some other people come in and share perspective, and we'll extend that invitation.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great if you had a series of hosts that you could sort of come in, sit down, and drive the conversation? And that's perspective. What it's about. The base is set up here to do just that.
Well, maybe Jamie's heard this. He'll come in and sit and join us because he's got lots to say. So
100%. We get Jamie in that chair, get Robert Mitchell in this one, and you got a full week of conversation.
You and I are at lunch.
And we can go to lunch.
It'd be great, because I'm missing lunch every day.
Every day, yeah. Well, I think we're doing well.
I think that's a good session today.
Good. And what are the other podcasts that people should tune into?
We have a number. So there's the Exchange podcast, where we interview interesting islanders. So just for some perspective, we had Matt McFarland on, leader of the Green Party. Today we drop Robert Mitchell, leader of the opposition, the Liberal Party. Next week we've recorded one with Kate McKenna. And Kate, people might know as a journalist, she's actually the senior parliamentary reporter for the Conservative Party with CDC. That's going to be a great one. We've got Jordan Paquette, who lives and works in Ottawa. He's a lobbyist working for Blue Sky. So yeah, we've got lots of different people. We've got a great cast of people lined up. Some really interesting podcasts, and that drops every Thursday. We've got the Business Edge podcast, the Red Dirt Review, which is another interesting dissection of some subjects more related to business, and certainly this dial-in program.
Right.
And if you have a podcast and you want to be part of our ecosystem, please join us.
Well, it's been great to be part of this conversation, Blake. I see we're at the end of our time here. Appreciate people that made comments here today, and certainly appreciate Jamie for calling in.
We will see you tomorrow. We'll be back.
Can't wait to do it.
Then we're going to try to extend your contract.
Thanks very much.
Bye,
everybody.
Thank you.